Hello, I'm Scott Wolfson, the owner of Florida Sun Studios and the host of Live from FSS. Live from FSS is a weekly show that we broadcast every week here on Facebook at 11 a.m. Eastern Thursdays. Live from FSS is a professional platform that serves as a platform for anyone who wants to host their own show, promote their brand and business, and get their message out there. Live from FSS includes useful tips and techniques that you can use in your own show. We take you behind the scenes in many of our productions, as well as interview industry experts on a variety of subjects covering current events, breaking news, trends going on. We got an exciting show for you today, and shortly I'm going to introduce you to two incredible ladies, Chelsea Krost and Marisa Hughes. Chelsea Krost is a millennial expert, millennial marketing expert, and Marisa Hughes is an intuitive trauma healer. And if you're not familiar with what an intuitive trauma healer is, you're going to learn shortly. Before we get to these two ladies' interview, which should be exciting and fascinating to watch, we're going to hear how the world of social media and intuitive trauma healing collide and work together. I want to tell you a little bit about Florida Sun Studios for those of you who may not be familiar with our studio. Florida Sun Studios, or FSS as we're commonly known in the industry, is an independent broadcast studio located in beautiful downtown Fort Lauderdale. We're near all the major businesses, the courthouses, the airport, the seaport, and just miles from Fort Lauderdale's sunny beaches. FSS services all the major news and sports networks, everyone from Fox News, CNN, ESPN, MSNBC, CNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, and every other acronym that brings you news. We also double as a full-service video production company, performing the following services: corporate videos, commercials, internet shows, now offering Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Periscope shows, and basically anything and everything that could be filmed against the green screen. And now, without any further ado, I want you to welcome, as I'm sitting here with Marisa and Chelsea, I want you to welcome them to the show. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Excited to have both of you here.
Yeah.
I got a double shot today.
Yeah. It's a family plan.
Family, right, and we're going to get into that in a second. Chelsea, we're going to start with you. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about who Chelsea Krost is, if they don't happen to know, and if they're on social media, they should know?
Sure, yeah. Well, it's actually very exciting. I haven't lived in Florida for 8 years, but I did start my career 10 years ago in Florida. So I feel like I'm coming home again in a different way, career and professionally and personally. But when I was 16 years old, back in 2008, I was a sophomore in high school. I went to Spanish River, for everybody listening from Florida. And I was very frustrated with the traditional media, Today Show, Good Morning America, The View, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters. These were all my idols. I looked up to them tremendously. They started talking about this generation in a very negative light. We're the demise of the future. We're entitled. We're lazy. We're never going to supersede our parents or the previous generation. And I looked at all of my peers. I mean, Spanish River is, a public school, people of all shapes and sizes, from all different, types of backgrounds, and everybody was equally working as hard to succeed in their next step, which was going to college. We had lists of 10, 12 college universities that we were applying to. I would not, put the entitled, lazy, narcissistic stereotype on my peers. And I said, we are the next generation. We're not empowering this generation to succeed by talking about us so negatively. And that was really where I started to, I was very disappointed, but I turned that into making a purpose out of it. And I wanted to create a platform for this generation, to empower this generation, to feel like we could come together. It was also just a time where cyberbullying and bullying really broke out in media. We were talking about it for the first time more than ever. So this isolation was also happening within this generation of feeling alone or not knowing where to turn. The influencers, millennials, social media did not really exist. So really at the time it was Hannah Montana and 16 and Pregnant for teenagers. And some may argue that that's not the best programming for this generation, to each their own with their opinion. However, I just wanted to create a platform that was going to be for the hustlers of the next generation. So Teen Talk Live was born down in Clear Channel Studios, WBZT, West Palm Beach. And I pitched the show, Teen Talk Live, to the station. 3 months later was our first show, and that was truly the catalyst to my career.
And at the time, you were 16 years old when the show started?
Yes.
Wow. And fast forward 10 years, and now you're an authority, a go-to expert, not just in millennial marketing, but in social media. You're a spokesperson.
Yeah.
A lot of accomplishments in a young career.
You know, a lot of people challenge me, you know, at 26 years old, how could you be an expert, or what do you know? And and the reality is that I'm a millennial. I'm a living, breathing, walking millennial. I have been crowdsourcing and polling and speaking to and producing on behalf of millennials since before the term was really coined in media. I was educating media affiliates across the country about who millennials are, why millennials are important, and how to market to this generation when people didn't really know what the term even was yet. So it's amazing to think about the past 10 years and the evolution of this space because of social media and traditional and digital marketing. And it's really been an incredible roller coaster over the past 10 years, because now if you don't know who millennials are, I'm like, what rock are you sleeping on?
Exactly.
So, right?
And I want to segue to Marisa Hughes, another fascinating lady who's in a different arena. And she's what's known as an intuitive trauma healer. Marisa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what exactly does an intuitive trauma healer do?
So my background is in therapy. I started as a licensed clinical social worker, and I found that my gut was always leaning towards trauma. And that goes right back to the intuition, right? So like I've always kind of felt this place in my stomach, if you will, of like leading me towards where I am supposed to be. And so for me, I always knew I wanted to be a healer. I always knew I wanted to be a therapist. And it was just a really natural progression to lead into the trauma world. What I've experienced personally my own types of trauma. And I remember back when I was, you know, working on my own self and my own healing, people didn't know how to help me. Nobody understood. I remember going to multiple therapists who completely re-traumatized me and had no idea how to help me, how to make me feel better. And they made me feel worse about myself. And it was like in those moments that I was like, I need to figure this out for myself. I need to know how to do this for myself, and then I need to do this for other people. So I kind of started that way, getting into the trauma focus within the therapy world, because I knew that there was this big empty space of clinicians who really didn't understand trauma, not even mental health for a minute, you know. So mental health I was just kind of say it's Mental Health Month right now in May, and it's really important that we break the stigma about what mental health issues are and bring awareness to the fact that a lot of people have mental health issues. And so a lot of therapists, unfortunately, like have never experienced depression or anxiety, and they don't even know what that feels like. And so to sit in a room with a client who's going through something like that and have no recollection or understanding or, you know, anything to do with really getting their experience, I think is a deficit in some of the therapy world that we have going on today. And so I knew that it was my job to kind of fill that gap. And so I would say, you know, trauma chose me, you know, that specialty chose me, and I've always been really intuitive. And so I kind of, even then as a therapist, I felt like I'm still not giving it all. Like my soul still has this other stuff to do. It still has this other ability. And so I started to get really clear with that. I started to connect with my intuition a little bit more and realize that really getting in there and being able to dive deeper with my clients help them on a different level. So, you know, I started out as a licensed therapist, and I have that very, very strong clinical background, but it's really about bringing in this intuitive side that really gives my clients the best of both worlds. You know, there's a lot of people hear the word intuitive and they think like, oh, she's really woo-woo, or like, you know, very like out there. And like, yes, I like my crystals and I like those things, but I'm very grounded in the clinical space as well. So it's really that combination. But we can definitely talk about that more. But like a nice little, you know, intro of what I do is it's the combo, the best of both worlds of bringing in your intuition side along with the clinical side.
It sounds like both of you ladies have found your calling in life very young. I mean, most people, they can go through college, through their 20s or 30s or 40s, sometimes even later in life, and they still don't know what they want to do or what their mission is. But you seem to have both found your niche. Now, what our audience may be wondering is, what does an intuitive trauma healer and a millennial marketing strategist have in common?
That's a great question, because you would think, where's the synergy there? And I think that really chalks up to a lot of the entrepreneurial mindset of the millennial generation. Marisa and I are both millennials. We are both business owners, and I feel that millennials are really thinking outside of the box and getting more innovative than ever in the way that we handle business or roll out business. And I think our collaboration is an example of how we're changing the face of entrepreneurship and therapy moving forward. So Marisa and I had this revelation because we both work on each other all the time, which is great when you can keep it, in the family. I also think you're only as good as your support system, and Marisa and I are definitely support systems for each other. But we both realized when I had a total breakdown of, I lost a business, I lost a lot of money for myself, I lost my grandfather, and I was a complete mess. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to having those moments in life, because we're all people, and people all experience, peaks and lows in life. And that definitely does influence us in the workplace. And when you are your business, when you are the business owner, your personal life, everyone says keep personal and profession separately, but really how much can you do that when you are your business, right? Especially when you're running the company. So Marisa and I had this, aha moment of everybody is a person, whether you're a business owner or whether you're an employee or whether you're an intern. And if, especially business owners, entrepreneurs, if they are stuck, right, because of something that happened, whether it's a divorce or a breakup or a death or a financial loss, that's going to, of course, affect how we operate in the workplace. And if we can't get unstuck, if we can't clear ourselves, are we really going to have the biggest potential in the workplace, within our business as an entrepreneur? And that's where we really started to do this back and forth collaboration of, I work with entrepreneurs. I help entrepreneurs, help them establish their branding, their logo, their messaging, their social presence, their website. But at the same time, I can't help you if you're stuck mentally.
Right,
if
and
you're
that's where
stuck
Marisa
emotionally.
comes into the fold.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so we really kind of tag team our clients together, where she does the real social media piece and the strategy side of things. I dive into the stuckness behind it, we're human first and foremost. So we come with our fears, we come with our insecurities, we come with our griefs and our losses. And those are all traumas. I think with the word trauma, people think that it has to be a physical abuse, a sexual abuse, these horrific war zone experiences. Those things are most definitely trauma. But, losing a business partner, having someone have an affair in your relationship, losing financial stability, all of these things are trauma also. And these traumas keep people stuck in their business, and they keep people from being successful. There's a lot of fear around failure, but I actually find that there's also a ton of fear around success. Like, who am I to be great? Who am I to succeed? Who am I to do what my parents previously hadn't done? Or, to be the first of my generation to speak out. And, especially as a clinician, first and foremost, I started out that way. You're trained in the therapy world. You don't talk about yourself. Nobody gets to know who you are. Some therapists don't even wear wedding rings because they don't want to disclose that information. It's really about being this blank slate. And for me, that's where therapy wasn't enough. I needed to go deeper into the intuition because of that. And that's how we really tag team and supported each other in that. Chelsea helped get me the confidence to realize that if I had this message to give and I had this ability to help these people, I needed to get out there and I needed to break these stereotypes and these norms of, what therapists in the last generation and past have been doing and what they're even doing now. So Chelsea's ability to really pull people out of their fear when it comes to being public is really uncanny. And then I dive in there with the what is the deeper stuff? What happens if you're seen? A lot of people have body image issues, for example, and being on camera, they say the camera adds 10 pounds, and right away you're already insecure before that even happens. And does it even? We don't even, that's just a saying. And even if it does, is that what defines you? You know?
I think about social media. We all have to put ourselves out there all the time to stay relevant today. And for those of us, I think social media is absolutely fantastic. I love social media. However, I do acknowledge its flaws and its negatives. One, of course, major cyberbullying. People trying to tear other people's confidence, appearance down. Two is this distorted reality, this perception of perfection. Nobody posts a bad picture, right? They only post the best pictures. They only post when they're having the most awesome time, when they're doing the coolest things. So everybody has this distorted perception of everybody's reality of it being so perfect, so awesome. So if you know, so Marisa and I really tag team the professional and the personal aspect of the entrepreneur, so they can get clear in every aspect of business and life.
It's funny how you brought up social media, you know, maybe having that veil to what's really behind someone's life. But on Facebook Live from FSS, we tell it raw. I mean, there are no do-overs. We are live right now.
Exactly.
And if you're joining us just now, we want to welcome everyone to our Live from FSS show, an exciting show so far. And we are so glad to have both Marisa and Chelsea with us. We want to encourage you to join the conversation. Send us your questions and comments. And Marisa, myself, and Chelsea will do our best to get to you. Want to give a shout out to a few fans here. We had Lindsay Rothman-Schwimmer, who is a fan of Marisa's, and she had a question for her that we want to ask on the air and see if Marisa could follow up. She says, Lindsay says that she often feels sudden anxiety and also becomes overwhelmed very easily. Any quick tricks or advice for coping with this? She has an upcoming wedding, and with that, it's come a lot of added stress and anxiety for her.
That's a really great question. Really, really great question. I love that she brought up the wedding and getting married. We think of getting married and everyone, like, same thing with like what we were just talking about with social media. We have these expectations. We have like the highlight reel, if you will. So when you think about people getting married, you have the engagement pictures and the announcements and the beautiful wedding pictures. But we don't see the behind the scenes stuff. And with positive things, there's also what's called positive stress. And a lot of times people are like, oh, you must be so happy, you're getting married, you must be at the best time in your life. And actually, that's one of the most difficult times of people's lives. We're talking about combining two separate families. We're talking about combining values, combining, people's backgrounds, all these different things, both cultural, emotional,
money talk,
financial. The first time people talk about money a lot of the time is when they're getting married. Whose parents are paying for what, or are the parents not helping, and then what does that mean? Like a lot of this is really, really stressful.
Even though it's joyous, it's still a very stressful, anxiety-filled time.
Exactly.
I want to give a special shout out to Grant Selig, who's celebrating a birthday today. Also, Blair Somberg, thank you for tuning in. Lisa Delmonico, thank you also for tuning in. And we've got, who else we have watching right now? We've got a whole host of fans from Chelsea and Marisa and the Live from FSS crew. Chelsea, I want to segue to you. You're considered the go-to authority when it comes to social media marketing. You have that title of being the expert when it comes to millennial marketing. Can you explain to our viewers, you touched upon it before, first of all, explain to those who may be living under that rock that you said, who are the millennials and what makes you that go-to expert in this field?
Sure. So, millennials, to define, are 18 to 35 right now. If you go to any resource, they're going to give you different brackets. It's kind of this loose age range. However, about 18 to 35 is really the bracket. I call 30 to 35-year-olds cuspers, and those cuspers either identify as millennial or Gen Xers. So why are millennials such an important topic of conversation? Because one, we have the largest combined spending power on the planet. Millennials have about $200 billion in spending power. So we are clearly a force in the purchasing decisions, and obviously keeping people in business or unfortunately, shutting them down. Millennials are engaging and interacting and purchasing different than any generation before because of social media, because of influencers. Millennials are incredibly influenced by influencers. What are influencers? Influencers are people with a specific niche or area of expertise that have defined their messaging and crafted their expertise, have put themselves out there on social media or online and have generated a following. So they're actually creating influence amongst their followers. These people are incredibly influential in making purchasing decisions or just making decisions, period. Millennials are 80% more likely to respond to an influencer's reaction to a specific product or service versus a brand's advertisement. So if I posted something, hey everybody check out FSS, it's such a great studio here to use in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, it's going to get more it's going to be more received than you putting a billboard on 95. And that's just because of the way in which we relate to people who are, that we admire, that we look up to, that we feel we've built rapport with, because influencers engage in their community versus celebrities where, you can't engage in Katy Perry. You can't engage in Lady Gaga. There's no connection unless they are engaging in social media, which they probably are, but it's just different as an influencer. It's not a celebrity. We're everyday people. We just have an area of expertise and an audience of influence. Millennials have a different mindset than any generation before because of social media as well. We are demanding certain things that previous consumers didn't, because they really didn't have a platform to demand on, like corporate social responsibility. Millennials really want to know what big Fortune 500 companies are doing in the philanthropic and charitable space. We're that much more likely to buy something on behalf of a brand that is somewhat, philanthropic or charitable versus a brand that has no CSR, corporate social responsibility. Millennials want to engage in a product and a brand. They want, to have a social presence. Customer service industry is completely changing because of millennials. We all used to have to pick up the phone and speak to 5 different people before we could, finally get to the problem solver. No, millennials want it fast and instant. We want to, have customer service via Facebook, via Twitter. We want an FAQ video library of how to do it ourselves. We're very, self-generated. So we have that's why marketing and millennials has become such a phenomenon, because every advertiser and marketer needs to change gears of how they are rolling out marketing strategies to ultimately appeal to this next generation.
Now, you started off very young, precocious. At 16 years old, you became the youngest producer and talk show host, and you created a program called Millennials by Millennials.
Teen Talk Live.
Teen Talk Live.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and the evolution of Teen Talk Live?
Yeah, so when I started Teen Talk Live, the word millennial didn't even exist. I'm sure I would have put, millennial instead of teen in the title. But Teen Talk Live was truly just a passion project. I never in a million years thought it was going to transpire into such a wonderful career. But it was truly out of passion of feeling that millennials didn't have a platform to voice their opinion, voice their thoughts, ask questions, connect with like-minded people from across the country, outside of just their community bubble, and learn from experts of various fields, like someone in intuitive healing versus someone who's, in marketing. We didn't have that access and availability because social media really didn't exist, So I wanted to create that platform, and that platform was Teen Talk Live.
And you're both considered influencers. Different arenas, social media marketing, psychotherapy, an intuitive healer. Nonetheless, you are go-to experts in your respective fields. So the term influencer is not just for social media, right, but it could be applied to a whole host of different professions.
Absolutely. And people, throw the term influencer around loosely because it's become now officially a mainstream term. But in my opinion, that when you're officially sought out within media or speaking inquiries or press inquiries where somebody wants your expertise on their platform, to me that officially puts you in the influencer category, because a lot of people just label themselves influencers because they want to look that much more flashy, but influencers with legit credibility need to be focused on because of the hard work and sweat and passion for their community growth online. A lot of people could just label themselves as an influencer, and I think when you are like anointed influencer by PR, by media, by speaking inquiries, it definitely makes it different.
So you not only have a dominant position or presence in social media, but you've had quite a bit of exposure on earned media with both local and national networks. I've had the pleasure of hosting you here for News Live Shots, and I have the pleasure later on, after we're through with our show, of having you back for a production shoot, green screen. But for the past 10 years, you've been a featured guest on shows like GMA, CNN, MSNBC, The Today Show, a host of others. I mean, your name is out there. It's plastered not all over social media, local news, network news, a go-to authority. And we put together an edited montage of your different news appearances and some interviews with some folks that maybe if people tune into TV, Shark Tank, they may recognize some of these folks. Let's roll that footage.
Damon John in the Impulse office, we are so excited to have you here.
Thanks
the
for having
ultimate
me.
shark. I mean, I'm trying not to geek out because I'm such a fan.
Thank you.
Such a fan. I mean, so many entrepreneurs in the world look up to you, and such a visionary and a pioneer.
Chelsea Krost is a millennial marketing strategist who will share some tips with us. So good to see you, Chelsea.
Thank you so much for having me.
Millennials are 80 million strong with a combined buying power of $200 billion. Facebook gave them a voice, so where are they going to go now that they've grown up? Well, let's ask our next guest, Chelsea Krost, who advises companies on capturing those millennial dollars.
I think Google Plus is going to be everyone's private weapon. I mean, it's kind of a great blend between LinkedIn and Facebook because it allows you to promote yourself, promote your bio, have a professional headshot. I've been on this mission to change that word entitled to entrepreneurial because I believe that this generation is pioneering and innovating methods and careers and entrepreneurship because we have the resources available. I've been in the millennial space for the past 10 years, and just because I target millennials, just as many baby boomers and Gen Xers absolutely love the content we share, especially the content we're about to jump into, because the reality is millennials have the largest combined spending power, so you definitely want to learn how to appeal and target this market.
All right, please welcome lifestyle expert and host of the radio talk show, The Chelsea Krost Show, 24-year-old Chelsea Krost.
Social media allows you to post whatever you want. So if she's saying, I'm not too excited about me starting my job tomorrow, is that her fault? Being that you've been a creator of multiple different brands, but also your own personal brand identity, how could you give millennials tips or advice to utilize social media or the tech that we have to build our own brand, whether you're working for the man or you want to pioneer your own success one day?
Millennials are actually really amazing if they first of all put the same fundamentals in business that's been around for a million years. Get ready to out hustle everybody, like-minded people around you, quality product, and understand your customer. And if they do that, they're going to be successful.
The reality is that 2017 is the year of the influencer boom. Influencers could be your best friend, and I call them your modern digital publicist. Because we, as influencers, are helping you spread the word, amplify your messaging, and educate consumers on what products and services are available.
Influencer. We keep hearing that word over and over. You've mentioned it. But your influence extends beyond the millennial niche, everything from small businesses all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. You've advised and provided services for Fortune 500 companies like MasterCard and IBM. How does the Chelsea Krost brand command such a strong presence in the world of marketing in general?
Well, I think a lot of people think, oh, she's 26 years old, she must be a YouTube sensation, something that kind of happened overnight. 10 years, it's a decade I've been doing this. And one of the things that I always will chalk up, my success to is the timing. I really believe that timing is essential in life and in business, and it can work for or against us at times. And I believe that I got into the millennial space before it became trendy. So I was already speaking about millennials, building up SEO value online about millennials, starting to aggregate a platform for millennials, and started to, speak the language of millennials. I was the person educating people on what millennials were. So when all of a sudden millennials started becoming something that every press affiliate needed to speak about, and you typed in millennial, Chelsea Krost popped up. And I just continued to evolve with this generation. I never deviated from my purpose. I always stayed on brand. I always, was very authentic to my community. And I walk and talk, I walk the walk and talk the talk, you know. And I think because I've been doing that over the past 10 years consistently, I've been able to remain relevant and also been able to scale my business and influence. And of course, as you start getting tapped by national affiliates across the country or speaking events across the country, you get to start to broaden your bandwidth and broaden your brand awareness. And that's, you know, once national started coming into the world, like the Today shows, the Bloombergs, the Good Morning Americas, it wasn't just Chelsea Krost from West Palm Beach, Florida. You know, it was, you know, I could speak to you wherever you needed to be. I mean, now, beautiful thing, look at Facebook Live. We could do the same thing too. 10 years ago, we didn't have that opportunity. And I also think, you know, still people in charge, or most people, millennials are starting to come into the CEO role now, but baby boomers were really, you know, the people in charge when I was 16 years old, and they really liked that I started in local AM radio. You know, because I started in traditional media versus somebody that maybe gained popularity on YouTube. So I think that also helped me get in the door of a few places, is because, you know, they liked that I, you know, came from their roots. Now, it shouldn't matter where you come from because we have a platform to be on Facebook Live or Periscope. Everybody should be building their presence wherever their target audience is. But
and if they're in South Florida, we want them live from FSS.
Exactly. FSS is the studio. I absolutely love the studio. And for anybody who needs green screen, production, teleprompter, I mean, you think, when I was moving back to Florida, I said, oh my gosh, like, where's my studio connection? I don't live in Florida. I don't live in New York or California. And you are the closest thing to it.
We don't want to just be the closest thing to New York. We want
right,
to be
like
a home,
studio.
Right, we want to be a home for you and anyone that comes here. And what we try to do at FSS is to create a home away from home environment, whether it's our guests that are booked for Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, whoever, or if it's someone coming here to do a green screen production like you are afterward. We want everyone to feel at home there, at home here. And I'm going to segue to Marisa real quickly. Marisa, you happen to have a unique ability to be able to get in touch with people that have outer body experiences, that are going through some real tough, traumatic times in their lives. Can you explain that to us?
Sure. So the intuition that I have, and I think everybody has a little bit different, those people that have intuitive gifts. So mine I like to call clairvoyance, which is where I can almost like hear messages. But for me, it's this, you know, it's not like an auditory or anything like that for me. Some people it is. For me, it's this like, and again, it goes back to the gut, which we started in. Like, it goes right back to this like intense sense of knowing something. So my specific gift lets me connect with people who have passed on. I can also connect with our higher selves, our souls, our spirit guides. A lot of times, and I think this kind of freaks people out, but it's really cool. I think of it as like we have like a posse, you know, like we all walk around with our own guides, our own sense of people that are supporting us, souls and spirits that love us and that want best for us. And so, you know, I can connect with those guides as well as with people who've passed away. And, you know, I found that for a lot of people, the grief is a humongous trauma in their life. You know, losing someone that is close to you, losing someone, you know, is such a devastating event, and then it continues on. And a lot of people, like, grief is actually something that I talk about a lot when it comes to trauma, because people don't know how to deal with grief. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. And the best answer that I can give, like, whenever someone asks me, like, well, how do I support this person who just lost someone? The best answer is to know that there's nothing you can say or do that's going to make this better for them, you know. And the other big piece is that grief is a continuum. It takes time. There's no specific, you know, time frame that you're supposed to feel better. A lot of people have heard of like the 5 stages of grief, and while those stages do occur, you know, those stages are not linear. They don't happen all at once. They don't happen in a specific order. And so I think it's really important to kind of break that. And then what I bring to the table is both the psychoeducation piece from the trauma and the clinical background that I have, but then I bring this intuitive gift as well, where, you know, we can connect with the loved ones of people who've passed away. We can ask them how they're doing. We can understand, you know, why they left when they did and what that felt like for them to leave. You know, a lot of times they become part of our spirit guide tribe. You know, Chelsea's a perfect example. Her grandfather passed away, and he was actually one of the first people who I really allowed in, because I used to be really scared of this gift. I mean, it's a very weird thing to be able to connect with dead people. You know, it's a very bizarre gift.
Almost like the movie Sixth Sense,
yes,
right?
I
Sort
actually
of?
really relate to that movie, because I'm like, you know, that movie speaks to, you know, as much as they make it kind of like horror and scary, it speaks to this idea that there are spirits and souls among us. And not to kill the movie for anyone who hasn't seen it, but I'm sure most people have by now, but the fact that he's a therapist and that he's dead and he doesn't even know it, because his gift is to heal people. You know, like, I actually really connected to that movie because of what that's about. You know, and so like I was saying with Chelsea's grandfather, like, I knew his spirit, I knew his soul in life, and so I felt safe to allow and welcome in his soul after he had passed on. And so we actually did a lot of test runs with her family, with me doing readings. And the way that I started to really trust in it was I started to know things that I didn't know. You know, I would understand or have this sense of knowing. And I'll tell you, the first time that I always had intuition. Like, I once knew I was going to get into a car accident unless I was paying complete attention and had both hands on the wheel. And I was like, okay, put the phone down, both hands on the wheel, be totally ready. And literally a car came right at me. And I was ready to swerve because I had this gut intuition that this was going to happen. And so, you know, that kind of thing has always been there. But the time for me when it was really clear and obvious that I can't avoid it anymore or ignore it, I was actually getting a massage. And they say that touch really stimulates the intuitiveness, and this woman was massaging me. I literally knew nothing about her, just met her 2 minutes ago before walking in, getting on the table and getting a massage. And in my head, this like obsessive almost thought of like Sister Maria, like her name, like the name and the fact that it was a sister came through. And I'm like, you know what, I just want to relax. I'm just going to ask her, and she's going to tell me that there's no sister named Maria, and then I can relax and enjoy my massage. So I was like, you know, do you have a sister named Maria? I know that's really weird. And she was like, yes. And I was like, you're lying. And she's like, you're the one that asked me. Why would I be lying to you? And so literally it turned into this whole thing. I had this message for her about her sister. And then she actually had a son that had passed away also. And he had a lot of messages for her, for his mother. And he had asked me to come through with his sister first because his death was very recent and very, very painful. And so we started with the sister to warm her up. And that's how souls really work together too. Like, different ones will want to come through at different times. So the best thing that I can explain about the intuition piece is that the therapist in me is very careful about boundaries and respecting boundaries. So I will never, like, I love Teresa Caputo, for example, the Long Island medium, but I personally will never walk up to someone and be like, do you have a family member that passed away? I'm sensing a, you know, whatever. Like, I just don't do that because I'm very about, like, if you're not ready to receive it, I'm not going to give it to you. And so I've actually mastered, I've worked really hard at this, like clearing the space so that I don't even welcome that energy in until someone directly asks me and is ready. And in their ability that they're at a place that they can really receive the information. So, like, for example, like if someone were to just come up to me and I could just sense they're not ready to hear this, you know, it's usually positive. I only ask for energy of the highest good. But like if they're surrounded by people that they're not really comfortable with, I'll say, like, why don't we talk another time, like when you're alone and I can support you better. So that's where the combination really comes in, the therapist in me that's like,
you can give the
really
therapy, but if they're not ready to receive it, then you hold off.
Exactly.
You
So
respect
it's
the
very
boundary of...
very guided
Right.
on boundaries, definitely.
Interesting.
I've been with Marisa many of times in public settings where, excuse me, I'm getting
It's okay.
covered.
We're just
I
live on
love
Facebook.
live.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're live here.
I'm pacified
We're
in
human.
antibiotics. I'm not contagious. However, I've been with her in many public settings where all of a sudden I start to notice that she's like just completely removed. And I'll be like, are you okay? And I can now I kind of know what her energy and vibe feels like. But it's because someone won't leave her alone. And someone who's departed won't leave her alone. And she was like, someone's grandma's here, and I have to give this message. And I'm like, who's grandma? And she knows exactly who it is. And she will always go up to the person and explain who she is, what she does. Do you want to receive this message? And because a lot of people think it's a scary thing, and Marisa makes it so not scary, so not intimidating, and more welcoming, and she either leaves you with such closure or with such emotion of like feeling so overwhelmed that you received this out of thin air. I've literally seen her make many grown men cry. No joke, on multiple occasions, but crying of happiness.
I seem to have that. I don't know what it is, and people always, like, you know, and in a positive way, people always allow their emotions out with me, and they're always like, I never cry, I'm not a crier, and I'm like, I don't know what it is, and that's part of the gift, is I have this ability to hold space for people, to create a safety where they can feel, and that's the way we heal from trauma. You know, a lot of times people think, you know, we just have to get on with our lives and pick ourselves up and move forward, or, you know, it's in the past, leave it in the past. But if we don't feel our feelings and we don't work through our stuff, we don't move forward. And so that's where I really combine the two.
Sort of becoming numb to the realities of life.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Let me ask you, how your background is as a psychotherapist too, but how does what you do as an intuitive healer differ maybe from a traditional psychotherapist?
I think it's that gut knowing that happens. I mean, we all, like as a psychotherapist, we're trained to really read body language and understand what our clients are needing, or with, you know, to really kind of read between the lines of what they're saying. But the intuitive piece goes like 10 times deeper. I mean, I've been in a conversation with someone, a client recently, and she's like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, like everything's actually going really great in my life. And I get this moment of like, you're full of it. You're lying to yourself right now. And that's where the finesse of being like, you know, I feel like you're not being honest with yourself. You know, like that ability of knowing, but then calling them out on it in a loving and nurturing way. And she looked at me and she was like, Marisa, like, nobody can tell but you. Like, I can't even believe that you were able to, like, within 2 seconds of talking to me, like, dive right in there and know. But it's that piece that brings it's that sense of knowing, that ability to really, like, get in there and dive, like, straight to where we need to. But at the same time, and the therapy piece comes in where, like, I don't rip Band-Aids off and let people bleed out. Like, it's all about holding space for them, nurturing them, supporting them, giving them what they need so that they can really heal. So it's very ethical in everything that I do, while at the same time, like, knowing and calling them out when they need that, or being able to help them connect the dots, for example, of, like, you know, right now you're very, you know, fearful of, you know, we'll go back to the entrepreneurship for a minute of how Chelsea and I work together. Like, you're very afraid of being successful. You know, well, like, what does that mean? You know, what does success mean to you? There's a lot of deep underlying things that are traumas in our life that keep us stuck. And so we want to really dive into that and almost like peel back the layers of the onion, but in a safe and secure environment, you know, and that's really the combo. So the intuitive side of it, what makes me different as a psychotherapist is this sense of knowing what my clients need. And sometimes, like, in my head, I'm not even thinking, it just kind of like flows through me. And that's really the intuitive gift that, you know, I can't deny helps me be the skilled therapist that I am.
It's interesting. We've got two bright young ladies here, successful young millennials. Both of you are classified as millennials. And it's interesting how you bring up, when someone just sees you on the surface, maybe doesn't know you on a personal level, Chelsea Krost and Marisa Hughes, and like, wow, success, you know, they have it all and everything. But you really bring the human side to things, because with a lot of the successes you've had to have failures along the way, and we all have.
Absolutely.
And I could see where Marisa ties into that, where she provides that therapy, or we won't use the word therapy, healing, shall we say, healing, more healing. A more euphemistic term, where, you know, life, I guess, is it's a roller coaster. You have your ups, your downs, and what we don't see on the outside, whether it's a celebrity or another successful business person, we don't see the real them, you know, behind the success of what they had to go through to get that success. It's not like everyone's handed a silver platter where, here, the silver spoon in your mouth, where, here's your success.
Right.
You've written your own story. You've written your own story.
Yep.
And that's something that's interesting.
I think that entrepreneurial spirit is the willingness to kind of think outside the box, to be the trailblazer, to take some risk, to put yourself out there. Chelsea's been doing that for 10 years. And I actually, I've been asked recently, like, who I look up to, and she's one of the people, because she teaches other people how to do that by role modeling it, by being that trailblazer and showing, like, how influential and how positive that is for others, and so for me, like, as a therapist and a healer, my fears were broken the minute I realized that this is about a bigger picture. This is about helping people on a bigger level, and you can't do that when you're afraid, and you can't do that when you hold back. And that's a really big piece of it. But I think that's that millennial spirit. Like, we're willing to be brave. We're willing to kind of dive in and take risks and put ourselves out there in a different way.
And I can feel the spirit in this room right now. And if you're just joining us, we're live from FSS. I got Marisa Hughes and Chelsea Krost, two unique and fascinating women joining us live on the set today. Fascinating show. I want to give a shout out to Brenda Smith, who's watching the broadcast. Also, Michael Richmond. My dad, Mark Wolfson, thank you for tuning in. And Stefano Pena as well. And Lisa Delmonico from Advanced Prompting Systems. We want to encourage you to join the conversation, the broadcast. Send us your questions and comments if you have questions for myself, Marisa, or Chelsea, and we will do our best to get to you during the broadcast. But this is live from FSS. I'm Scott Wolfson, your host, alongside Chelsea and Marisa. And now we're going to get back to business with Chelsea here. Chelsea, I looked on your Twitter, and the numbers are boggling. You have 130,000 followers. Jesus. I mean,
Nice amount of people.
That's incredible. You host a Millennial Talk weekly show, and you say it generates up to 50 million impressions.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the show, how others can watch, or how they can engage you in conversation?
Absolutely. So a lot of people get confused thinking that, it's a radio show or maybe a digital series, but it is not. It is called a Twitter chat. And for those of you who might not know what a Twitter chat is, it's truly the modern day Q&A gone social media. And it is a hour-long discussion and dialogue that everybody gets to be a part of now. So what we do is every Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern, we have a different expert and a different topic. That expert and topic is disclosed, several days prior to the chat, so people know who, the who, what, where, when, why for the chat. And there's always a scripted amount of set questions that the expert is going to answer, so you get tons of content and inspiration and engagement through these chats from the expert and the topic at hand. Like, for example, last week was with Ibang Eka, who is a rock star entrepreneur, and it was all about scaling your business and generating more clientele. So he was answering all of the questions, but the thing that I love the most about the Twitter chat is that everybody, all the participants get to, share their expertise as well and engage in everybody else. It's all like-minded people. There is so much networking that goes on within this Twitter chat, because it's a lot of people who are professionals, a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming to learn, to network, to engage. And it's also a great way to generate impressions or dialogue through your own social channels. A lot of people who are experts that I invite on to be the expert of the Twitter chat say their follower count spikes because of, I brought all these new participants, and now they know of Ibang, they liked a lot of his content, they want to go ahead and follow him now. So it's a very interactive interview with an expert and an aligned topic every week on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock.
So how do they follow you, or where do they go to actually engage in the chat? They have to first follow you.
Very
right?
easy. You don't even have to follow me. It'd be nice if you want to follow me, but you
should.
You don't even have to, because Twitter is a public and open forum. So all you have to do to find the conversation is type in hashtag Millennial Talk into search. You're going to type in hashtag Millennial Talk, and all of the tweets are going to populate for Millennial Talk. And I'm the host, so I always say open up another tab for just Chelsea Krost so you can see when the next question is coming out. I do big graphics, next question coming up, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, so you always know where we are in the chat. You always know what question was just sent out, and then you start to see so many tweets populating with answers relevant to the question at hand. So you're not just learning from the expert, you're not just learning from me, but you're learning from all these like-minded individuals, sometimes up to 400 participants in this one
Are
chat.
you able to get to everyone's question and answer?
Most people aren't actually asking questions. Most people are sharing more information. And if there are specific questions, I do try to get to them, or most of the questions sometimes are allotted to the expert at hand. And the experts always say for any additional questions after the chat, of course, feel free to follow me, direct message me. But it is content overload. It is so much great, relevant content, and it's coming from somebody who's a legit expert in its space, because I want to make sure that I align legit influencers to talk about the relevant topic at hand. I want everybody who participates to feel that at the end of the hour they have learned something new, if not many new things.
And Chelsea Krost, you are a legit influencer.
I hope so.
Absolutely. I mean, at 26 years young today, you were rated by LinkedIn as a top millennial marketer to follow, and also inducted into the Forbes Coaches Council this year. What's next on your list of goals or accomplishments to fulfill?
That's a great question. Well, I'm actually in one of my first new endeavors right now that Marissa and I definitely, are tag teaming again, and it is my first program that I rolled out online to ultimately take my information and take what I've learned over the past 10 years and now share it with the masses. So a lot of my clientele within the past 8 years has been, the Fortune 500 companies, the MasterCards, the IBMs, the Intels of the world, which I love working with, and it's so much fun, but I also want to work with fellow entrepreneurs. I want to work with, young millennials who know what they want to do, have a passion for it, but now need the packaging to come together, the branding, the website, the signature traffic builder. This is a signature traffic builder for FSS. You're generating more awareness on your studio.
Having Chelsea Krost and Marisa Hughes on could only bolster FSS.
Right, and you've aligned influencers to your interview, because now you've tapped into both of our audiences. Now both of our audiences are getting educated on FSS. So that's basically what the Twitter chat is, but gone Twitter format, not Q&A format. But my program is officially where everyone and anyone across the country can purchase this program. It's 12 weeks live, interactive coaching, webinar style, and it's all about marketing to millennials, marketing strategies, how to use social media, branding, influencers, influencer marketing.
And how would they get access to that? Your website?
So the program's currently live right now, so you can't purchase the live program right now, but it'll soon be a DIY program, which means that you could do it yourself on your own time, whenever, maybe in your pajamas, late at night or early in the morning, versus, you have to be there live to participate. And that will be coming within the next few months on chelseacross.com. So it'll be really exciting for everybody who's like, look, I need to know how to use social media, or I need to understand the millennial consumer, or who is the millennial consumer. I know I need to be doing.
What's the hashtag? What's the ad?
What is hashtags? Where should I be on social media? What social media channels are relevant for my business?
Right.
Where's my target audience on social media? These are all things that we dive into in the program.
I wanted to ask you a question now that we're talking about relevancy. What's your opinion? I know you get a lot of organic reach, but what's your opinion on advertising on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn? What is your opinion on paid advertising?
So you could do paid advertising on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram right now. I think that paid advertising is great if used correctly. So especially if you have a product rollout or a new service rollout or a new program rollout, it's really great to really establish a true advertisement on social media and utilize the advertising on the back end, all of the customization that you get of targeting a specific target audience, location based, age based, generation based. There's so many details that you could do to make sure that you're spending your money in the right target market that helps you attract the right clientele. So I'm all about doing that, especially when you're building your audience and building the momentum and really wanting to generate awareness on a specific product, service, rollout, initiative, campaign. I think it's fantastic, but I just wouldn't want people to not know what they're doing and waste their money. So, because a lot of people are like, oh, I just boost a post and, $5, I'm good to go. And it's like, well, don't keep boosting posts if you really don't know what to do on the back end to make sure you're boosting the posts so that the right people are seeing your advertisements. But it's a very, I mean.
Now, I know you can put age and area. Now, obviously, that's important if you're selling a product to a certain area.
Exactly.
But a lot of the tags, like when I put up for my show and it says the tags, I'll put the tags in. I'll put millennial marketer. I'll put psychotherapist. Or when people look online, they look. But when I see the actual event that I create or something, I don't see the tags there.
So those tags are called keywords, and those keywords are really more used for a searchability factor, not necessarily for public display. So for example, like if we're posting to a YouTube, right? Let's say we wanted to take this Facebook Live video and now post it to YouTube. You're going to ask for all the tags at the bottom: Millennial, Intuitive Healer, Marisa Hughes, Chelsea Krost, FSS Studio, all the tags that are relevant, right? So those tags help the searchability. So for somebody random to go into YouTube and type millennial marketing, hopefully us tagging millennial marketing, Chelsea Krost, social media, it's going to help our video populate for them to see it that much easier.
That makes sense. But the question I have is, on the bottom of the Vimeo videos I do or YouTube, I'll put the tags and I'll see the tags, but they disappear on Facebook for some reason. I don't see the tags written.
Because that's really just for searchability.
But are they actually going through those tags? I mean, are those tags actually registering?
Yes, of course. If you are properly doing it, and if you're properly tagging your videos, then that's all that's all for the user, really, just to help find your
But it's
video.
not going to come up like when I create an event and I put millennial marketer.
No.
It's not going to come up. But whereas when I put a tag or the tags for my Vimeo videos, those come up and you could see that under the video.
Right.
So it's different.
So tags are keywords, and that's really just think about for searching and finding the content versus hashtags. So if you want people to see millennial marketer, millennial mindset, intuitive healer, that's where you should put a hashtag in the caption.
The pound sign.
Yes, the pound sign.
For all you older folks out there, the pound sign.
Put the pound sign and your word, and there's no spacing in hashtags. Otherwise, it will not be relevant. And if you want someone to see it, you do hashtag in your caption. If you want this, want to increase searchability, which of course all of us should increase our searchability opportunity. That's where you do the keywords and the tags.
Interesting. We took off your website, not taking the copyright from it, but we're giving the credit to you.
Sure.
Your demo reel, which is impressive, very impressive. And we've got that video queued up. We want to see Chelsea Krost in action. We've heard you. We want to see you in action. Let's roll that video, Scott.
Millennial. Now look at what the word has come to.
Millennials, 80 million strong. Educated, cultured, accepting, philanthropic, entrepreneurial, driven, tech-savvy, innovative. And only one person has her finger on the pulse of it all.
And now we're joined by lifestyle expert Chelsea Krost. 24-year-old Chelsea Krost.
Chelsea Krost. Chelsea Krost, lifestyle expert Chelsea Krost.
I want to go to Chelsea.
Chelsea Krost.
There are so many millennials who are hustling to make a mark. One of the reasons why I started working in the millennial space is because I wanted to shine light on millennials like you being entrepreneurs, being hustlers, being innovators.
Millennial expert, Twitter chat queen, speaker, consultant, brand ambassador, radio TV personality, and founder of The Impulse.
By the time I was 18, I started producing for local affiliates, and then I worked my way into national TV.
I'm loving this information, and I'm not even part of your generation.
And as I really started to get a foothold within the millennial space and become a true influencer, expert, millennial lifestyle expert, brands started to call upon me for spokesperson opportunities, to be an ambassador, and also to be a consultant. There are a lot of stereotypes pertaining to this generation. Lazy, narcissistic, entitled, job hoppers. My platform is making it super easy because of the incredible fan base and the loyalty that we've gained through social media to change the word entitled to entrepreneurial.
A name that brands trust and a generation can relate to.
How can you market to this generation effectively and efficiently if you don't understand the mindset of this generation?
Chelsea Krost.
I am a living, breathing, walking, talking millennial.
Wow. If you don't know the name Chelsea Krost by now and Marisa Hughes by now, you're living under a rock. Ladies, I could talk to you ladies for hours, but I want to ask you some final questions and get some final input from you. I want to ask you specifically, both of you, roadblocks that you've faced in your success climbing up that ladder, which, as we've talked about before, had its sharp twists, turns, bumps in the road, and unexpected falls. Maybe it could be like a roller coaster.
Yep.
Let's start with you, Chelsea. Tell us a little bit about your rise to the top in your field.
Yeah, well, in no way, shape, or form has it been easy by any means, and I think you got to have stamina and persistence to be a successful entrepreneur in any field. Throughout my 10 years, I have experienced ageism. I've experienced, female discrimination, and those two are probably the most prevalent, especially because of me being a female and starting out at 16 years old. Media is a very it could be a beast at times, and sometimes not a nice beast. And one of the reasons why I started Teen Talk Live, like I said, is because I wanted to empower this generation. And I remember vividly being 18 years old, getting flown out to California to meet with MTV. And they were interested in possibly doing a reality show on my mom and I, because my mom was my manager, my publicist, and we still work together. She's absolutely brilliant, so creative. And one of the reasons why I really was able to start at 16 years old. She knew what to do, and I was like, so I have an idea about this radio show. And we went to MTV, we were meeting with the producer, and he said, so Chelsea, we're really looking for some conflict in the reality show too. So for example, have you ever been raped? No joke. And I turned to my mom and I said, whoa.
I don't think this is for me.
I don't think this is for me. And I also, it was so, it made me so sad that was what conflict meant. And that's what he thought was important to really spotlight, especially talking about teenagers at the time. And I was like, okay, thanks, but no thanks. And I literally got up and walked out. So there's been some very weird things like that, because when you are putting yourself out there, when you're in media or you're working with production, sometimes they forget the human aspect of it. That you just asked me if I was raped, like it was like past assault, So, that's been very interesting. And also when you put yourself out there, and Marissa and I talk about this all the time, is that you leave yourself subject to criticism. When you put yourself out there, people because of freedom of speech and social media now can tell you how they feel about you. And not everyone's going to love you all the time. I have had such hate mail about me touching my hair during interviews. I have a lot of hair. Sometimes it gets in my face. So people pick you apart. And if you let the cyberbullies win, if you let the cyberbullies get to you, then you can really, not necessarily step into your biggest success, your biggest opportunity in life. So I've really had to deal with a lot of that growing up, 16, starting to be in the spotlight, I guess, so that people were always criticizing me. And in the beginning, it really got to me a lot, especially this one experience in particular. I had the New York Observer come to my apartment in New York, and we were talking about how to avoid the freshman 15, which is what you tend to gain some weight when you're a freshman because of all of the things that happen that you're not supposed to be doing, but everybody does anyway. And I'm a certified health coach, so I was coming from a health perspective, lifestyle perspective. And he got to my apartment, which they don't really come to your apartment. So that was one red flag. But I was 18, 19 at the time, so I was still quite the newbie. And he said, you know what, Chelsea, we're totally changing gears. We want to just do an interview on who Chelsea Krost is, your beginnings. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm always used to getting interviewed on behalf of content or a topic, not necessarily let's just talk about Chelsea. So that was really one of the first times. Long story short, he ended up totally twisting the interview and misquoting me and making me out to be this person that I totally was not. And the hate mail, and if you heard of Jezebel, the platform, she ripped me to shreds. Talk about tearing other women down. I don't know what I don't get it. But it was the reality of when you put yourself out there, people are really going to tell you like it is, whether it's nice or not nice. So that's definitely been something that I've had to experience and learn how to put in its place. But it's something we all have to experience now, because as professionals, social media is a public portal. It's a public platform. I mean, Marisa even talked about body image issues. You could be talking about, something that has nothing to do with food or fitness. And like I would talk about marketing and people criticize how I look, so that's definitely something that I wish wasn't an issue with social media and online, but that's never good unless we eliminate the comment section,
And maybe you don't want to do that. I mean, I guess
which you should not.
The benefit of having the feedback outweighs the cost of having someone make some silly, irrelevant, silly comment.
Yeah, and you'd have to take it with a grain of salt, and it's of course it's going to hurt you in the beginning,
Right.
Especially because when you're going to start to hear things that you've never heard before, and then you're going to start to pick yourself apart. But at the end of the day, I always say cyber bullies are really cyber cowards, because it's like, say it to my face. Okay,
Right.
You're sitting in front of a screen and you don't even know me personally.
Right.
So you want to make up your decision off of one article or off of one, that's your problem. That's not my problem.
Right. As long as you could stay on focus on your brand, your message, and just
Exactly. As long as you stay authentic to your purpose, authentic to your brand, authentic to your community, you're going to have your ride or dies, within your followers, and then you're going to have those people that have nothing better to do than to criticize you.
Marisa, roadblocks to the top of the mountain.
There's been quite a few, and I think Chelsea really talked about very similar things, but I've faced very similar issues as well. The age one was definitely my first one, especially right out of grad school. I started my own private practice as a therapist very fast. A lot of people say that that's like their end goal, and for me, like, it's just what I always wanted to do. And and now even like I'm kind of launching into the online space and doing coaching and really breaking all of these barriers. And so the first biggest hurdle that I had was age. Like, people would look at me and they'd be like, what do you know? Like, you're in your 20s, you don't know anything about therapy. And I remember like my first couple, I've worked with a lot of couples as well, and I just actually had a couple that I've been working with recently. We've been working for a while, and they just followed up with me, and they were literally at this point of ready to leave each other, last straw. They called me so desperate, and they're like, you are our last chance. And they're now engaged and getting married and moving in together. And it's like, to be able to say, like, listen, give me a chance, like, let me speak before you judge me. And I obviously look very young also. And, there's just a lot of that judgment. So the ageism was a very big one. Like, smart psychotherapists are in their 50s and 60s. They've been doing this forever. But, I think that I come with a very fresh perspective, and being married and understanding what that's like, all these different things lend to it. I've had my experience of mental health stuff and trauma stuff and those kind of things. And, my soul is very aged, and especially in the intuitive side, like, I can connect with our age of our souls, and I'm definitely a very old soul. I've lived many, many lives, and so my age, my actual number and how old I am now has nothing to do with my ability to help people. So that was probably the biggest first one that I faced. And then a few others that I faced, my first time ever really writing about myself, and as a psychotherapist, you're trained, like, you don't talk about yourself. I mentioned that before, but I wrote about myself, and I wrote about my experience where I really wanted to understand how to heal trauma with yoga, because we store a lot of our trauma in our bodies. And so part of healing is releasing that, being able to know where in our bodies that trauma is and releasing that trauma through something like yoga and physical movement. And so I took a yoga teacher training. And it was with this guru who was supposed to be like, this guru who's literally called a guru. People would kiss his feet. It was a very interesting. I studied in an ashram. I, took care of the sugar crops, and I came home with like scratches all over my arms from cropping. And, it was a very interesting experience. But he literally called me out in front of a group of people and was like, you're too fat to be a yoga teacher, in front of a room full of people. And the clinician in me responded first. The clinician in me was like, how dare you? Thank God I have my coping skills, and thank God I'm capable of this. other people would literally crumble. Like, how could you be so insensitive and to use your power, your sense of I'm a guru,
Or to knock
and
them out.
rip people out? And so then to top it, I became brave enough, which took a lot for me at first, to put myself out there, and I wrote about it. And I wrote this blog, and I shared this experience. And this person, some, troll on the internet wrote, like, well, you are too fat to really do anything. Like, just terrible, mean stuff. And I remember calling Chelsea and crying, and I'm like, how did you deal with this? And people are judgy.
She heard it from me that day.
Yeah, she was like, I'm going to just answer back.
There's so many times I'm like, don't answer, but this guy, I couldn't help it.
And to me, it's like, I'm a normal person, I'm human, and why is that what defines us? And so I felt like it was such an important message, because my goal is to empower people, no matter what you look like, to be brave, to put yourself out there, to speak your message, to speak your language. We all have a message, we all have a voice that matters, and how we look has nothing to do with that. But for me, there was a lot of learning how to not take that stuff personally. And then, take that even more recently. The challenges that I've been facing recently is, I'm launching this online work. And a lot of in the therapy world, they're like, well, therapy is one-on-one and in person, and it's a 50-minute session, and it's, weekly, like this is the structure and this is what it's supposed to look like. And then here I am, like totally going outside the box and being like, no, we're going to pull the intuition in there, we're going to pull the yoga therapy in there, we're going to dive deep, we're going to get them feeling better quick. This doesn't need to be years and years of a process. When I work online with people, I work with video chat. Like all of these things are very judged, and people are very critical of things that they don't know or that aren't familiar or that they're not doing. Trauma, people think like trauma takes years to unravel. And it does, but it doesn't. It depends on the person. It depends on their willingness and their ability to, dive in and be real with themselves, and how much support they have, like someone like myself, holding the space for them. So my clients actually really heal usually within, 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
And some of them come into me and they're really ready, and we do a 1-month deep dive. We just jump in there, and, we'll even do twice a week and dive in there, So it's about healing fast. Some therapists are all about this long psychotherapy, the Freudian way. And those are great ideas, but they're old information, and there's new ways to do things. And so I think the biggest challenge of all for me has been to get out of my own head and stop listening to all the noise of how I'm supposed to be and who I'm supposed to be and how I represent myself. And that's actually why I really represent myself more as an intuitive trauma healer. I don't even fully carry that therapy part, because I am breaking a lot of those norms in a positive way, and that's how I'm really going to reach people and help people. I don't want to stay small anymore, because that's not fair to all those people that I can really help.
Interesting. Healer, not therapist.
Healer, yes.
Final thought. You wanted to mention something, I think, about your ebook, which I put in the newsletter and on the Facebook calendar invite, but you had a final thought to say to the audience.
Definitely, yeah. I really just wanted to invite the audience, anybody's listening, whether you've had traumas that are big or small, and I just want to define again, trauma is anything that has shaped the way that you look at the world. Trauma is physical abuse, sexual abuse, but it's also emotional abuse. It's things that don't leave scars, that are visible. It's things that leave scars on our heart, things that make us feel less than, moving, bullying, divorce, someone not being emotionally there for you. All of those things are trauma. And so when it comes to working on it, the biggest piece is becoming aware of it. And so I've created this guide. It's a free guide of the 5 kind of initial steps to work through your trauma, and to really start connecting the dots to like why you're stuck now, why your life is the way it is, and how to overcome that. And so you can get that free guide at www.rapidreleasetrauma.com. Definitely, it's a really important guide, because I think it talks not only about what trauma is and how to kind of unravel it, but how to connect the dots and realize like we're still living our trauma if we haven't worked through it. We're still really present in our insecurities and in our fears if we haven't done the work. So it's the connecting piece of what's holding me back, and then how do I propel forward. So yeah, again, it's rapidreleasetrauma.com, and I really encourage anyone and everyone to listen to it, share, read the guide, share it with anybody that you think will benefit.
And we're going to put that in the edited tags of the video too.
Perfect.
Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure, my pleasure, having you as my guest, both Marisa and Chelsea. I can't thank you enough for coming on set with me. And we want to thank everyone at home or wherever you're at work, sneaking into Facebook Live on your iPad or your iPhone or your Samsung. We want to thank everyone for joining us today, and want to remind you each and every week, 11 a.m. Thursday, we have the Live from FSS show. Next week, we've got another exciting show for you. I'm going to have on set with me a local publicist in the South Florida area, Cheryl Davis Parker, who spent her career in network news before venturing on her own, and we're going to dive into traditional media and getting placement into the media, different professions, different people getting onto media for different stories. I want to thank everyone for joining Marisa, myself, and Chelsea today. It's been a fascinating talk, and we'll see you next week as we go live from FSS.